Manx Radio Saturday Sport.
And I'm pleased to be able to tell you that Sam Spooner has made it up. He was locked out downstairs, but he has made his way up to the studio, and we start in the Rosper Women's Premier League this evening. People often look to these two clubs as the elite teams on the Isle of Man. In the women's, both had 2 points from their opening fixture of the season. Vikings A against Bacchus A played each other today. There was only one winner, though, wasn't there? Bacchus A 0, Vikings A 3.
So it was actually Vikings A4 in the end, I believe. A late correction to the score there later on. I actually said Bacchus A could win this one, and I still think that later on in the season, once they've played together for a few more games, got used to each other again, that they'll be knocking on Vikings' door and Valky's door for certain. The Vikings A today, they turned on the style. Louise Slater with an early penalty flick. Kim Carney, Sarah Blackman, and Zoe Crow on the score sheet for Vikings A, which puts them pretty well sitting pretty at the top of the table.
4 points from 2 matches. They're looking good at the start of this campaign. I did have a message in from the Bacchus A captain, said they are expecting an exciting season. So disappointment for them today, but I'm sure things look bright for them going forward. Valkyries A, they're also a team that you would say will be challenging at the right end of proceedings this season. They took on their own B team today, so I think you knew always who was going to win this one, and indeed Valkyries A did beat Valkyries B. The final score, if I am correct on this one, Sam, 4-1.
You are correct, absolutely spot on. Valkyries A, they were always expected to win. It was just a matter of how many, and Valkyries B can be really proud of the way they've kept their first team to 4 goals. I mean, Valkyries B were the only side last year to have won every game and not concede a single goal in any league game whatsoever, which I've never known that in my time in Manx hockey, which is nearing 17 years now. And so that was an amazing achievement. To come up against their A team and only lose 4-1, again, I think they should be proud of themselves for that. Valkyries A, though, keep pace with Vikings A. Amy Speed, Andrea Littlejohns, Ellen Robinson and Rachel Lucas on the score sheet for Valkyries A. Lisa Pugh for Valkyries B, and I've had some great reports in for Ava Treatler from both captains. Did an outstanding job as goalkeeper for Valkyries B today, kept them in the game for the whole way.
Obviously, the A teams in these matches are always expected to win, but it does give players in the B team a chance to say, well, look at me, look how I'm playing. I deserve a shot in the A team, and I'm sure that plenty of players did give their managers, respective captains, food for thought this afternoon. But it finished Valkyries A 4, Valkyries B 1. A bit of a southern derby. Castletown A took on Saracens, and it was the home side which was Castletown A who took home the points. Yeah,
and again from both sides, Saracens' goalkeeper had a brilliant game today. Unfortunately, I didn't get a name of the Saracens' goalkeeper today. But yeah, did a really, really good job, especially in the second half of keeping Castletown to just 1 goal. The scorers I got today were Zoe Shimon with 2, Captain Nikki Kane and Hannah Leese on the score sheet for Castletown A. And that's an improvement from last week when they suffered a narrow 3-2 loss. So again, I think they're going to be causing some trouble for the established sides.
Harlequins versus Ramsey, the final game in the Rosper Women's Premier League today. And I think Harlequins, it's a very young side. They may get a few lessons this season, but they play the game in the right way. They didn't get the result they wanted today, but I'm told that they played with the right spirit. And again, it's a bright future for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see the way that Harlequins just seem to be a train for brilliant youth. And if they can keep this squad together for a few years, you've got to be expecting them to be doing what Saracens men did last year and kicking on the door of the established teams. Ramsey A today, though, they are a very experienced side, a young side for the most part, but they've been together for years now. Ellie Burton with 2, Sophie Stout, Vic Garner, Joe Quine all with 2, Julie Chesterton and Christina Cameen on the score sheet as well for Ramsey A.
So the final score in that one, Harlequins 0, Ramsey 10. That is the Rosper Women's Premier League. Turning to the men's top tier, I suppose we best start with the game between Valkyries A and Bacchus A, because Valkyries A have been producing teams which are challenging at the right end in both women's and men's hockey. They got a good win last week against a strong Harlequins side who pushed them all the way, I may add, Sam. They were taking on Bacchus A today, and we know how good Bacchus A are, and they proved it once again today, 5-1 winners.
Yeah, and I think Backers will be a little bit disappointed that there wasn't more. From what I understand, Valkyries didn't really have any shooting opportunities as such. They had 2 really good chances. Ollie Webster, when he gets hold of a ball, you barely see it, and he finished really, really well for Valkyries A. Backers A, 5 different goal scorers: Carl Moore, Chris Whiting, Shea Christensen and Jamie Brown. And young Patrick Cox, who's come back to the Isle of Man during the COVID pandemic, seems to be scoring for fun this season. That's 5 goals in 2 games.
And some great players that you just read out there scoring for Backers A today. Do you have the Valkyries A goal scorer?
Ollie Webster.
Ollie Webster got the goal for Valkyries A. He wasn't playing last week. Greg Miller, though, Alex Freer, Kieran Gale, they've got some fantastic players in that Valkyries side. Do you think they can stake a claim for the title this season, or do you think it's just a season too soon for them?
I think it's probably a season too soon for them. The likes of the young Alex Freer, they've concentrated quite a lot on bringing some of the younger players through. I mean, last year, I don't think Ollie played a first-team game last year for one reason or another, and I think they're continuing that again this season, is to try and bring through all their young players and get them playing together for a number of years. And that's why Backers are so successful, because the young players that are coming into the side have been playing in and around and training in and around that squad for years now. And the same with the Vikings ladies. You know, they've had players that have been, yes, they've transferred players in from other clubs, but a lot of the players that have come in have played through the C, the B, and then into the A, so they've trained with them for a long time as well. And Valkyries are getting to that stage now where they're getting some really good young players through. I just think this year maybe just a touch too soon for them.
But they're challenging the status quo, and that can only be good for Manx hockey. Vikings A, they got a very, very convincing win today. They were playing Saracens A, who I understand have lost a few players recently, so that could have impacted the way things developed today. But the final score, Saracens A 2, Vikings A 16. That is a very healthy win for Vikings A.
Yeah, and if you look back to last year, Saracens A were challenging Vikings A. In fact, they stole a point off, I say stole a point, they very deservedly took a point off Vikings A last season. But this year you've had the likes of Scott Mason move to Vikings, and Will Bryson as well, and they've slotted straight into that first team, and you know they've really improved that Vikings A side. So Saracens A are struggling a little bit, especially for personnel at the minute, but they've still got goals in them all over the pitch. Tim Roberts and Tom Dalton Brown on the score sheet for Saracens A today. Vikings A, I'm going to have to hold my breath. Archie Cayley with 3, Nathan Evans with 3, Tim Henderson, Neil Crow and Scott Mason with 2 each, Tom Wilson, Will Blake, John Cooper and Stephen Crow all with 1.
Said that very well. Didn't make any mistakes either in record time, but a very big win for Vikings A today. You have to feel for Saracens' loss of personnel right when they were building something special, it seems. So you do feel for Captain George Powell at Saracens A. Vikings B against Ramsey A today. Vikings B taking home the points, 3-1 winners.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised. A lot of people will be thinking, oh, it's a B team, you know, they're not going to have the personnel. But the way that Vikings A have recruited it, when Vikings A's captain midweek was saying, I've got too many players, I'm going to have to put some of these in the B team this week, I'm sorry. Even though you deserve to be in the first team, everybody's training, everybody's doing really well. So some of you are just going to have to take a break this week. And then you've got the likes of John Verrill and Jake Fair dropping down for their turn this week in the B team. And they're going to improve any side on the Isle of Man. And Vikings B did really well. 2 B team players did get on the score sheet, however, Nathan Vaughan and Tom Burrows. And John Verrill putting the other one away for Vikings B to earn themselves a very, very good victory. And Dan Hurd was the scorer for Ramsey A.
The final match in the Rosper Men's Premier League, Bacchus B against Harlequins A. Both these teams are new to the top tier. Harlequins A possibly would have fancied themselves getting something from this match, but it was Bacchus B who got all the points from this one, 5-2 winners.
Yeah, and I think Harlequins A expected to be able to do better against Bacchus B on account of the fact that they ran them so close last season. Even the last 2 games of the season, you know, Harlequins are there or thereabouts and sort of knocking on their door. But again, when you look at the goal scorers, Craig Leese with 2, Tony Bentley Roberts with 1, Sean Corlett and Harry Cahill. Tony Bentley Roberts and Craig Leese have both been playing in that first team on and off over the past few years, so they've got a very, very strong B team there. Harlequins A, though, George Ratcliffe got on the score sheet, and Alfie Swales, and is 14 years old, on his Premier League debut, if I'm right.
I think it would have been for Premier League debut, first goal for him as well, as new into the A team, and he's got a very, very bright future ahead of him. That is for sure. Scored a couple in the under-16s today, I believe, as well. If we move into Rosper Women's Division 1, then Sam, Vikings C topped the table going into this one by virtue that the teams hadn't actually played any matches. They took on their B team today, though, and as you would expect, the B team won. They won comfortably in the end. It was 6-2.
Yeah, it was like two very, very young sides, with a couple of experienced players in either team. But yeah, two very, very young sides. Vikings B running out 6-2 winners, which you'd expect, really. Charlie Millwood with 2, Jess Birch, Joanna Roney, Morven Smith and Daisy Loader all scoring 1. And then the C team, they did well to get their 2 goals in the second half, Jan Carney and Madeline Butterworth. But yeah, that's a heck of a future those young players and those lady sides have got. It was a great game of hockey to watch as well. And when you've basically got a squad and a half of young girls all coming through the ranks there, and they're all destined for a bright future.
You get the feeling it's going to be a happy night in the Spooner-Roney household. You'll find out in just a moment if you stay tuned. But sticking with Women's Division 1, a tight game between Castletown B and Bacchus C. It was the Southerners, though, who are smiling at the end of it.
And I was wrong. I'll hold my hands up and say I thought Bacchus C were going to win this one. But no, Castletown B did really, really well. 1-0 up in the first half. And a really, really tight fixture that was won in the end by Danny Oates.
Not so tight in the final match in Women's Division 1. Bacchus B 5, Ramsey B 0. Although it seems to be a second half show from Bacchus B.
Yeah, it was 1-0 after the first half, and you've got to think that when you look at the goal scorers, that's fitness for me. That Ramsey B side probably aren't quite as fit as the Bacchus side, especially the length of time that the Bacchus squads have all been training. Martha Broderick and Claire Mason on the score sheets with 1 each, and Sinead Cox with 2. Claire Mason has recently joined from Saracens as well.
Moving into Rosper Men's Division 1, again, very early doors. There was no time at all, really, between the end of last season and the start of this one, and plenty of games were postponed last week due to a lot of the under-16s being away in Guernsey. Where to start, then, in Men's Division 1? Let's go with the leaders at the start of today. It was the late pushback. I don't know if you have got the information there. I can tell you it finished Castletown B 2, Harlequins B 0, so Quins not able to make it back-to-back wins at the start of the season.
Yeah, and I think Harlequins will be a bit disappointed there because they had such a convincing win last week, 7-1, and against Castletown's B team. Although I have heard this week that Castletown's first team have had a number of players return to the fold after studying with the likes of Mark Bratt, Paul Kelly played today as well for Castletown A. So that sort of strengthened their B team a little bit with players dropping down into that B team squad, and it showed today with Castletown B winning 2-0 over Harlequins to really kickstart their season and get it moving.
Well, you mentioned his name there. Paul Kelly did get himself on the score sheet not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times this afternoon. Paul Kelly scoring in their match again, a Southern Derby, Castletown A 7, Saracens B 1.
Yeah, and then it doesn't take him long to get back into the goal scoring spirit, and I saw him afterwards. He was watching the Vikings C Vikings B ladies game afterwards, and he looked pretty good for it, and seemed to have enjoyed it as well. Christian Stereopoulos with 2 and Don Stewart on the score sheet as well. So no offence to these 3 lads, but they're very well experienced, shall we say. I'm
told in a message it was the old ones who put the ball in the back of the net. It was the youngsters who did all the work, and that did come from a Castletown A player. So congratulations to the Castletown A lot. 7-1 winners against Saracens B today. Vikings C 9, Bacchus C 2. Yeah,
and I said yesterday in the lunchtime today that this is probably going to be one of the friendliest games because Bacchus C, they're one of my favourite teams to play against, to play in, and generally watch because they're not there to win everything at all costs. At this level, it's all about having fun. Viking C 9-2 winners in the end, in what was a really, really good and fairly competitive game. And even John Pearson, and seen him with a hockey stick in his hand on the pitch for a while, but he really enjoyed it as well, and it's like he's never been away. Baden Masterton with a fantastic 4 goals for Viking C. Danny Kane with 2, Joe Kane, his brother, with 1. Aaron Hines on his return to hockey as well got 1, and I got 1 as well.
Congratulations, Sam. Always nice to read your name I'm sure, when you read the scores. And John Pearson, like he'd never been away. I'm a big fan of John Pearson, JP. Like you've never been away. 9-2 you lost today, John, so I don't know.
It's lovely playing against him, though, especially...
I'm sure it is when you win 9-2, Sam.
The pace, my pace and his pace were on an even keel today, and we pretty much just sat in the centre circle and let everybody else run around us.
We're almost out of time, but one final match. It came in men's Division 1. Bacchus Colts 1, Valkyries B 3.
Yeah, Lucas Harding on a senior debut today for Bacchus Colts got on the score sheet for the Bacchus Colts side. Valkyries B, Dean Bettridge with 2, and Graham Shimmin on the score sheet for Valkyries B. Bacchus Colts can be pretty much proud of that result because they were promoted. They were winners of Division 2 last year. Valkyries B were relegation candidates. They'll be competitive this year.